Chapter 1. The Sky Darkens. The sky was alight. On the evening of March 12, 1993, the air over the East Coast hummed with an unnatural stillness, the kind of quiet that comes before a storm before the storm. People went about their lives, unaware that the atmosphere had already begun its slow, deliberate unraveling. The weathermen spoke of a cold front, a dip in the jet stream, nothing more than the usual winter grumble. But this was no ordinary storm. It was something older, something hungrier. By midnight, the first whispers of wind slithered through the streets of Baltimore, rattling the windows of row houses and stirring the branches of bare March trees. A man in a flannel shirt, his breath fogging in the cold, paused on his porch to listen. The air smelled raw metallic like the charge before. A lightning strike. He didn't know it yet, but this was the moment the world began to tilt. The storm had no name. Not then. It was just another weather event. Another blip on the radar. But as the hours passed, the blip grew teeth. The winds, at first, a murmur, became a growl. Power lines swayed like drunkards, their wires humming. A discordant tune. Cars parked along the road shuddered as the temperature plummeted, frost creeping across windshields in jagged patterns. In a diner in Virginia, a waitress wiped down the counter, humming along to the radio. The DJ's voice crackled through the speakers, talking about school closures and road conditions. Just a little snow, he said, his tone light. The waitress didn't think twice. She had seen storms before. They came, they went. This one would be no different. But the storm had other plans. By dawn, the sky was a bruise. Thick rolling clouds blotted out the sun, casting the world in a sickly gray. The wind howled now, a relentless, keening wail that cut through the silence of the sleeping city. Trees groaned under the weight of ice, their branches snapping like bones, roofs buckled. Power poles toppled like dominoes, their wires whipping through the air like live serpents. A woman in North Carolina woke to the sound of her roof peeling away. She sat up in bed, disoriented, as the wind screamed through the gaping hole above her. The temperature inside her home dropped in seconds, her breath curling in the air. She grabbed her children and ran, her feet slipping on the ice that had already formed on the stairs. In the streets, chaos reigned. Cars skidded off roads, their drivers fighting against the invisible force of the wind. Emergency radios crackled with frantic voices, but the signals were already fading. The storm was too strong, too fast. It had swallowed the signals whole. A meteorologist in Florida, watching the radar in disbelief, muttered into his microphone, "This isn't just a storm. This is a monster." His words were broadcast to no one. The stations had already gone dark. The storm moved north, a relentless, unstoppable force. It swallowed cities whole. It turned highways into ice, ranks trapping thousands in their cars. It brought the power grid to its knees, plunging millions into darkness. And in that darkness, people huddled together, listening to the wind's terrible song. A man in Maine, his hands numb from the cold, pressed his ear to the radio. Static. Then, a voice faint, distant. "This is the National Weather Service. Repeat, this is not a drill. The storm has intensified beyond all projections. Seek shelter immediately." The voice cut out. The radio died. Outside, the wind roared like a living thing. It tore at the walls, at the trees, at anything that stood in its path. It was no longer just a storm. It was a force of nature, a reckoning. And it was far from over. As the first day bled into the second, the storm showed no signs of mercy. The world had changed. The sky darkened. And in that darkness, the last whispers of the old world faded into silence. The storm had won. But the story was only beginning.